This conversation is brought to you by Modular, the payments automation platform. Hello, I'm Lily Gooden. Welcome to our Future of Utilities podcast. We're talking about inclusion, diversity, and the people agenda across utilities with a wonderful panel. Let's meet them straight away. We have Karen Anderson from the Women's Utilities Network. Karen, lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so hi there. I'm Karen. I am the Executive Director of the Women's Utilities Network.
Yeah.
I've worked with them for just over 2 years.
Brilliant. Next up we have Sophia Goring from Business Stream. A bit more about yourself, if you wouldn't mind, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Head of Sustainability at Business Stream. I'm a 2024 Mentor of the Year winner and have continued to support the One Mentoring Programme since.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And last but not least, we have Khanom from Lanes Group. Naz, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Naz. I'm the Head of People,
Yeah.
Lanes Group, and I'm Mentor of the Year winner in 2025.
Perfect, thank you very much. Lovely to have you with us. Let's get into it straight away. Lovely to have you here as well from across the conference. Karen, first of all, if you wouldn't mind just tell us a little bit more about the Women in Utilities Network, because you're doing some great stuff. We saw you earlier on speaking to a lot of people. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so the Women's Utilities Network was formed back in 2018 by 5 influential females in the utilities sector who realised that they were often the only females in the room,
Yeah.
And felt really passionately about the impact that increasing gender diversity women within utilities could give. And I guess the network's grown from strength to strength over the last 8 years.
It's great, and we saw a lovely event earlier on where a lot of people were there. I mean, you must be really pleased by seeing the effect of a lot more diversity, and it changes the workplace, it changes the work.
Yeah, absolutely, and the event this morning here at Future Utilities has got, over the last 3 years, has grown from strength to strength. I keep saying, 2 years ago we had, a dozen mentors and a few mentees stood in the reception area, and today I think there was well over 100 women and allies stood together, networking, supporting one another, and that's really the crux of what the Women's Utilities Network is there for, to support and help women and allies right across the utilities sector. So yeah, it was amazing. It's
really good. It's just incredibly positive, and it also improves the way work is done. Sophia, one of the things that I think we all feel a little bit nervous about is networking, and there can be quite a lot of misconceptions about it. It can certainly seem very daunting. Give us some hope. How do we do this in a really healthy, positive way where you don't feel like you're selling hard, you feel like you're having a decent conversation?
Absolutely. I think it's about going into it being really open-minded about the potential value. So, some networking opportunities will come to nothing, but who knows if it opens up a career opportunity in the future, a new friendship, or a minimum, an interesting conversation. If I think about my own career, I've got a great example of how networking actually had a real impact on me. So I met a wonderful woman called Lindsay that worked for a social mobility charity called Career Ready. And at the time I was working in communications, but off the back of that conversation, we brought Career Ready in as a partner, and I realised how interested I was in that social value piece and how businesses could, add real purpose to what they're doing. And as our kind of programme internally grew, I moved into that role of heading up our sustainability team when, prior to that conversation, I might have ended up there, but it was such a pivotal conversation to helping me work out where I wanted to end up.
It just feels, part of the reason it feels daunting to nice people is because you don't want to have to sell yourself, and actually you don't want to sell yourself at all. It's not even having to, that's not really something that comes to our mind. Is there a healthier way to look at networking and having that mentor-mentee relationship?
I think it's probably about not putting too much pressure on yourself. We all have conversations every day in our working life, in our personal life, and we think nothing of it. Yeah. And the minute you put a networking badge on it, people are like, oh, that feels horrible. So don't go into it with any expectations. Have a nice conversation. Most people are actually really happy to talk about themselves and share stories. And then who knows what comes off the back of that.
Yeah. Naz, you both have been Mentors of the Year. Well done, congratulations. I mean, how lovely. And, often we might think about, and rightly so, we focus on the mentee, we focus on the person you're helping. You will certainly focus on the mentee. But there are benefits all the way around, aren't there? You gain a lot by being a mentor as well. How have you found that balance? By being a mentor, what have you got out of it? And also, let's remember, what did they get out of it, do you think?
So I guess mentoring for me has sort of given me a purpose.
That's lovely.
Seeing people build confidence, overcoming obstacles, they've set goals that they thought were impossible,
Yeah.
and seeing them achieve those goals, for me, has been rewarding. So it reminds me how important it is that investing in people matters.
Yeah.
And it's also a two-way relationship where I'm learning as much as they are. So having conversations, speaking to them about their experiences, and it broadens my understanding. It also helps with my imposter syndrome,
Yeah, of
which
course.
I know a lot of people suffer with, but it's normal, and I get that. But yeah, it's a work in progress.
Sometimes what you might call imposter syndrome is a superpower, because you keep on checking yourself, you keep on improving, you keep on asking questions that, you're probably the first person to ask the questions, and they're the hard ones that you don't want anybody else to ask you. But that is also a self-improvement. That's actually a way to grow in your own job, and to, especially in the age that we're in now, yes, in utilities, but also in the age of AI, it's important to think differently and think about the next steps. Do you feel that you've been more prepared because of being a mentor? Perhaps you were a mentee as well.
Yeah, I guess so. It's helped me in my role, being a senior, part of the senior leadership team.
Yeah.
People come to me in moments where they sort of need that nudge, that support.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels nice and
Yeah.
rewarding that they can feel that I'm their safe space.
It's valuable, but also you mentioned the word purpose, very important. Sophia, what about yourself? And take us back to the situations you've been in where you've helped people. I mean, this is not a soft skill. This is a genuinely valuable, hard skill for the next steps of our careers, all of our careers.
Yeah.
So take us back. What have you got out of it?
I think you get a huge amount out of it, whether you're a mentee or a mentor. You
Yeah.
know, we focus a lot on the benefits to the mentees, but there's a huge amount of value there if you're a mentor as
Yeah.
well. You know, that coaching experience you gain, because everybody that you mentor is totally different. So having to adapt to what will work for them is massive.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is, I think I genuinely go into a mentorship partnership in the possibly quite naive outlook of like, I might make a new friend.
Nice.
And I've actually really enjoyed working with the mentees that I've met. You know, I'm mentoring 2 women through the program at the moment, and I genuinely look forward to catching up with them each month. And both of them have said things to me that I've gone, oh, do you know what? I've never considered that, because
Yeah.
I think we're so busy. We spend so much time doing the day job. We probably, none of us really give each other enough, give ourselves our own enough time to reflect. And actually being, whether you're a mentor or a mentee, you get that opportunity to talk more widely about your career goals.
How much support do we really get at work? Yeah. Karen, I'm going to give you in a second, but I'll do a little straw poll of our audience here first of all. But Karen, the look of pride when you listen to the stories is lovely, so I'll ask your thoughts in a second. But who here in our audience, hands up, has either been a mentor, first of all? Hands up if you've been a mentor. Lovely, that's just over half. Or a mentee? That's also half. Who would like to be a mentee if they haven't been? Even, depending, it doesn't matter where you are in your career, who would like a little bit of support? Yep. It's a bit of an embarrassing question, but there are a few there going, yeah, yes, I would, please. That's lovely. And Karen, that's important, isn't it? Because this is a supportive network that you build up. You build friends, yes, you build friends. Yeah, but you also build support that's going to help you with your career. Guess what else? Helps the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And you never know when you need a network at some point in your career. So if you start that right from the beginning,
Yeah.
you know, whether it be within your organisation or through networks like One,
Yeah.
and networking with people from different parts of the industry, you never know when you might need to call upon that. So it's great to start that networking journey really early.
Yeah. I've had the honour of being a mentor as well. It felt great. We forget that giving a little bit out, it actually makes you feel better. It actually makes you feel kind of stronger. It gives you a bit of confidence. It also makes you reframe the way you think about what you do in your own job. I think that's what you were saying, Naz. I wouldn't have thought quite of the things I told my mentors. I didn't think about them like that before I did it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Have you changed a little bit because of that? Or is it actually giving you a step up, do you feel, because you've kind of almost become better at your work because of helping somebody else?
I think naturally, we as people aren't always good at listening.
Yeah.
And through the mentoring, the most important part is listening.
Yeah.
And throughout every part of my role, you know, I take a step back and I make the time for them to feel like they're being heard.
Yeah.
And that obviously is well, it's so valuable to them.
Yeah. How difficult, I'll come back to you, Naz, how difficult is it to find a mentor? I mean, you're here with us today, which is lovely, but more can always be done. And that's true in utilities. Look, people are busy, they're out on the road, they're doing things, they're out there fixing stuff and making sure the business runs better. So it's not always easy in a busy diary to find people, especially when they're in different locations. What can we do? How can we make that easier, do you think? Naz, first of all, yeah.
Yeah, I would look for somebody that would help navigate your challenges in the area that you want to develop in.
Yeah.
Someone that has experience in that area and also willing to share their knowledge, their wisdom, but to share their successes, as in the stories, but also the mistakes that they've made and what they've learned from those mistakes. And that in itself is valuable.
Yeah. I've worked with transportation companies, I won't mention who, and in the area of mental health. And trying to get men to talk is really difficult. I'll tell you one very brief story, very, very brief, is that there was a guy who was working on the hardest end of mental health. And the drivers would come by the office and say, "All right, mate, how you doing? Yeah, oh, no, I'll see you soon." Next day, "All right, mate, we'll have a coffee sometime." The next day was, "I can just have a word with you about something." And it takes weeks, but the awards have been won in this particular client of mine. The unbelievable power and what that gave to the business has been remarkable. And the reason, in this case, and this was men I'm talking about, but the reason was it gave unity, and it also gave a sense of purpose, and it also answered questions. Now, this was in mental health. This is not necessarily just working, but it had such an impact, Sophia, on the way people worked and the relationships in the business. And therefore, what happened, people were having conversations and work was done better with less griping and less anger. Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about how much time we spend at work, probably more than we've ever done. So feeling like you're supported and there's people you can rely on. And I think mentor partnerships take on different forms. So, you know, to answer your question around where can you find a mentor, I think that's where the One Mentoring Programme comes in, because it's such a brilliant portal to be able to use. But you might also find that throughout your career you have kind of informal mentoring partnerships. I've spoken before about secret mentors that I've had that to this day probably don't know that I looked up to them.
Yeah.
But they've helped shape my career because I've looked at them and I've gone, actually, they do something that I really admire, or they have a skill that I'd like to develop. So I think it's important. I don't think you ever stop needing a mentor as well. I don't think this is just for people that start their career. I think you need it throughout.
It might give you confidence. It doesn't change who you are.
Yeah.
And so you still have to renew that. You still have to work on that. It's also nice to have people, Karen, to tell you that you're great at what you do.
Yeah.
That simple touch is so important. And I think we've all felt that, haven't we, in our work? A nice word in the right direction can make your day and make your week. And then hopefully you go into work the next day feeling a lot happier.
Yeah, and absolutely. And a mentor can also be away from your direct work environment.
Yeah.
You know, that's the beauty of the one mentoring scheme, is that you can have a mentor that's outside of your business, even outside of your particular line of across industry. So that's what's great about it, is that you can find someone who's got a completely different viewpoint from perhaps your immediate team, your line manager, the people you work with. So I think that's really valuable about a mentor, is that they can be removed from your own situation and give you some really unbiased support.
Totally. This conversation is brought to you by Modular, the payment automation platform. And Modular automates how money moves, delivering the efficiency, the accuracy, and the reliability that your finance operations need to scale. Can I talk about the role of women in utilities and how important that is as well? You know, clearly, the days, I think it's true, the days of big blokes doing every job in the utility has changed radically. What is the role of women in this relationship to make sure that businesses run happier? Karen, to you first of all.
Yeah, I guess it's not just a woman's role to make
No.
sure that businesses run happier. It's about having cultures in workplaces where everyone feels welcome, everyone feels that it's a place for them.
Yeah.
So it's having role models, having people from all different sorts of walks of life in senior leadership positions, and then that influences down into the cultures of organisations. So
Yeah.
it's everyone's role to make sure that those workplaces are places where people can join, stay, and thrive.
Yeah. Is there a shift? Is there more of an openness? I mean, this may be incorrect, but is there more of an openness? Is there more of a willingness to talk when there's a much healthier mix of men and women in the business? I mean, these are broad brushstrokes that may not be correct, but what do you think, Sophia?
No, I would say so. I mean, at Business Stream, we have a female CEO, so, you know, who's also a mother. And,
Yeah.
and I sometimes think it's been simple things like that. You know, when I started at Business Stream with a 1-year-old and knowing that actually there was no ceiling, you
No.
know, as a potential, to kind of just make me go, actually, I can get far and balance motherhood and career, etc. So I think the role of role models is really important.
Yeah.
And I think we've also got a responsibility. The utilities industry face a number of big challenges. We're not going anywhere as an industry,
No.
and we need a future workforce that's going to help address a lot of these challenges. And I think exposing young people, you know, going into schools and young people seeing that actually you can be male, female, you can be from different ethnic minority backgrounds, you can be anything. It doesn't matter. There's a role for you in the utilities industry. I think we've got an important role to play there.
In fact, diversity brings diversity of ideas.
Yeah.
And that's important. And Naz, I'm going to throw it to you. I know this is, you know, there's a big iceberg there, but I really think it's important to get your take on that. How important is the principle of diversity and the diversity of ideas? Because I think having people from different backgrounds, from different parts of town, from different parts of the country, different ages, with a younger workforce in utilities is inevitably the way we are going to go right now. What do you think?
Yeah, diversity is paramount to all organisations,
Yep.
and we all bring a unique style. We all have different voices, different opinions,
Yep.
and sharing those, you know, it brings us closer together, and we're able to tap into each other's strengths.
Yep.
And that's why diversity is so important. We bring stories from our backgrounds, from different industries, and sharing all the good stories and the not so good ones, it helps us, it helps each other.
It's wrapped into a fear of failure as well. If you have an open conversation, you have an open culture, there's less fear of failure, ideas can be aired. We're in a time when ideas can be aired, and then perhaps they can be acted on. I mean, that's a pretty healthy way to run a business, right? Karen, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking, you know, in terms of utilities, it's a reflection of your customer base, and your customer base is really diverse. So if everyone within, you know, a team looks the same, thinks the same, acts the same, then you're not reflective of the customers that you're serving.
Yeah. I really hope this conversation, we're not done yet, but I hope the conversation does flip a mindset slightly, because these are things that I think all of us feel, but many of us don't dare to talk about them at work. So that's the interesting thing about it, whether we can open up the idea of having good conversations between us all.
Yeah, and I think
really
it's raising that awareness is really important. You know, I work for the Women's Utilities Network. I talk about my job and the things I do at home all the time. And, you know, for the last few years, my husband's heard it. And, you know, I was really proud of him the other day because he called someone out in work for some of their language and behaviour, and he wouldn't have done that a couple of years ago. But because it's an awareness piece, and the more we talk about it openly in work and outside of work about hearing people's voices and letting everyone have a seat and a voice at the table, I think it's really important.
And it could still have focus. It doesn't have to be just the process of getting on with people and having mentor-mentee relationships. It's about getting things done. You can get things done perhaps more openly if you do have that relationship or those relationships in a business, particularly in a business that needs to run every day, every second, like utilities, where pressures are quite high in a changing time. Listen, we've got 5 minutes left, but let's talk about advice. What advice would you give to, let's pick younger people perhaps for the moment, but I also want to talk about the older people in the business as well. Sophia, just start us off. What advice would you give to people who are either starting their career, let's start there, but also people who are feeling like they're being phased out? And I'm reaching those ages now myself, you know? And I understand why somebody would want to phase me out, but let's stay there for a moment. So yeah, first of all, younger people.
So I think for younger people, one of the challenges, we spend a lot of time going into schools, and one of the most interesting things is the lack of awareness about how many jobs exist in any one industry.
Yeah.
So, you know, there will be a perception that everybody that works in the water industry is out there fixing burst pipes.
And arm deep in
exactly,
drains. Yeah.
exactly. But they won't appreciate that there is a communications team and a finance team and a people team and so many interesting opportunities in an industry that, yes, is, you know, undoubtedly has its challenges, but is also addressing major issues, you know, relating to climate change, the water pressures we're facing, etc. And so I think telling young people to be really open-minded about industries and doing that kind of exploratory work as to finding out more about the range of jobs that exist in any one sector.
Yeah.
And we have a responsibility to play by sharing those stories with them.
Yeah.
With regards to those people that feel that they're getting phased out, I suppose that's what's brilliant about mentoring, is that, you know, explore that as an option, because it does take you out of the day job and forces you to think a little bit more about where you are and where you want to go, and because we're so busy that just gets sidelined otherwise.
And we forget the expertise and the experience doesn't necessarily mean you have to be staid and static. You actually have loads of experience, and actually also working with younger people can be, as we started off with, can be so refreshing. So that relationship could be better, actually.
Yes.
It could be better. Naz, any thoughts from you? I mean, you know, again, there's so many things we could advise younger people to. Let's go with your first thoughts first.
I would say just don't be afraid to be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you have...
Does utilities need that? Does it need you to be you, or just a functioning piece of the machine? We
bring various traits, qualities that the industry don't have. So being yourself, being unique, is so important, and I think people need to see that and hear that, and that reassurance, and it, you know, it helps confidence. Yeah. It brings the best out of people.
Brilliant, and it represents, Karen, what you were saying earlier on, which was about, you know, utilities are serving everybody. Everybody is receiving the service, so represent that. And one of the things we talked about at this summit a lot is about having conversations, and not just conversations within utilities, the stuff that navel gazes, but thinking about the knock-on effects and what feeds into it. And that could be a technical element, but it also can be in terms of how we understand the world around us. So if you understand the world around you, you can relate more if you have a more diverse workforce. And that's just nuts and bolts, but it does kind of work. Karen, again, your thoughts on younger people, but also maybe on that point, how we need to up our conversation a bit.
Yeah, I guess my advice sort of for younger people, I've got a 20-year-old daughter who's forever listening to me harp on about what she should be doing in her career, but it is about building those connections, having those conversations, sometimes being a bit brave, speaking to someone outside of your normal daily task, which is difficult when you're early on in your career, but find out more about what's going on within your organisation and further afield. At the end of the day, no one cares as much about your career as you, but there are many, many people out there who really want to support and help you, and you just need to ask, because what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. Listen, we can carry on talking because it's a lovely conversation. I hope you agree, but that's enough time for us, I think. So thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you, Sophia, Naz, and Karen, of course. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you very much. Thank you. And for now, that's it from the Future of Utilities podcast. Great to have you with us, as always, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.